Bodybuilding and film have always been intertwined. Ever since its inception, cinema has captured audience imaginations with its physically larger-than-life characters. Prior to films like Pumping Iron, bodybuilders were often portrayed as outlandish caricatures, which did little to enhance their mainstream acceptance. Viewed as freaks, narcissists, or gay, bodybuilder Eddie Giuliani once quipped, "Nobody liked guys with the lumps back then. We were all thought of as morons and fairies." The sword and sandal genre, often referred to as peplum, introduced bona fide bodybuilders to an international audience, and the developed physiques which were the real star attraction of these epics gradually accustomed moviegoers to more aesthetically pleasing bodies. Alternating his workouts with visits to the cinema, a young teenage Arnold Schwarzenegger was awestruck by the on-screen heroes like Steve Reeves, Reg Park, and Mark Forrest. Schwarzenegger loved tales of great men and their deeds, and he hungered for a life aligned with a vision of his own personal heroic manifest destiny. These films became the dream fuel for a kid intent on escaping the provincial cul-de-sac confines of his dead-end existence of small-town Graz. Trusting his faith in the iron would be his ticket out. But conquering the world of bodybuilding was but one stepping stone in a much grander plan. Schwarzenegger's sights were set on conquering the much larger world of the very same movies he had idolized as a child. Pumping Iron helped legitimize bodybuilding in the eyes of the critical public, and laid yet another foundation stone for the gradual acceptance of muscle on film. While Pumping Iron provided a jumping-off point for Schwarzenegger's movie career, it was 1982's Conan the Barbarian that would truly launch Schwarzenegger's star into its stratospheric orbit. The determination and willpower that defined the character of Conan closely matched Arnold's own life story in miniature, reflecting an uncanny allegory to his own rise to fame. However, Arnold's on-screen rise was far from the overnight success that he had once envisioned, and he lurched from one disastrous role to the next. Yet he used the setback of each failure to build the reps needed to incrementally hone his craft. As bodybuilders, we know that out of weakness grows strength, and the epigram from Nietzsche used to open the film bears testament to the parallel themes present in the stories of both Conan and Arnold. For that which does not kill us makes us stronger. Schwarzenegger likened his selection as Conan to winning his first major physique title, and he prepared for the role with the same attention to detail and hard work that he applied to bodybuilding. Creating a movie version of the Pulp Fiction fantasy hero had been in the works for a while, and in a sense Conan had been waiting for someone like Arnold to come along since the early 1930s. After viewing a rough cut of Pumping Iron, the producers of Conan decided Arnold was custom fit to play their title character. It wasn't just Arnold's unique and undeniable physicality. Director John Milius recounts, "Arnold's one of the great people of the world. His whole philosophy is based around the fact that resistance is good for you, and that you have to push so much weight before the muscle grows." A photograph convinced Milius that Arnold embodied the very essence of Conan. The strain on his muscles and the veins was just horrible, yet he had this expression of Zen bliss, combined with the look of the lion on his face. Milius instructed Arnold that he wanted to see that exact same look whenever he killed someone. Instead of rage, Conan must always be cool. Proud of his own wild man reputation, Milius instructed Arnold to hang out with the outlaw biker gang, the Hells Angels, if he wanted to better understand Conan on a deeper level. But despite Milius's backing, securing the role of Conan was far from the automatic Arnold's slam dunk. Schwarzenegger's previous scrape with producer Dino De Laurentiis lingered in the mind of the diminutive industry power broker that Arnold had once insulted. "I don't like Schwarzenegger, he's a Nazi," he told Milius. However, Milius held firm. "No, Dino, there's only one Nazi on this team, and that's me. I'm the Nazi." Branding himself a Zen anarchist, Milius infamously extolled his far-right sentiments. Once weak and sickly, Milius was turned down from military service, and instead became a self-fashioned troubadour for what he viewed as a widespread evisceration of Western masculinity. Milius envisioned the creation of a modern legend like Beowulf or Hercules, synthesizing his own archetypal fantasy hero, portrayed in the original Conan novels written by Robert E. Howard. Born in 1906, Howard kick-started the sword and sorcery genre, possessing much in common with the man who would immortalize his main character on screen. Like Schwarzenegger, Howard was a sickly child who built himself up with bodybuilding. His passion for writing embodied mythic adventures of stoic survivalists who rode through bleak and blood-tinged barbaric worlds, meting out vengeful justice. Often outmatched but always stronger, beloved by women and refreshing in his level of savagery and intellect, Conan was unbeatable, but far from superhuman. He embodied the typical male power fantasy appealing in particular to teenage boys, and he possessed a philosophy which matched both Arnold's and Howard's views on unapologetically taking that which they wanted from life. Broken by the loss of his beloved mother, Howard ended his life aged 30 and never realized the full impact of his literary creation. Now into his own early 30s, Schwarzenegger was an unlikely age to become a major star. The rigors of getting the film off the ground created another major hurdle to surmount. Rather than wait, Arnold poured himself into training in the skills, stunts, and subtleties required to flesh out the barbarian persona. Immersing himself in the character of Conan, he studied both sword and axe, took fencing and riding lessons, and spent hours in front of the mirror practicing the elocution and mannerisms of a barbarian. He shed the excessive bodybuilding muscle for a leaner, rugged look, later explaining that, in the barbarian age, you don't have food every day. Despite his still formidable muscularity, Conan eschewed the superhuman strength typical of the mid-century peplums, acquiring instead a psychological depth to his character. Where the physique was the focus of previous sword and sandal epics, the complexity of Conan's ethos and motivations transcended the shallow tropes of these earlier narratives. Throughout his preparation, Schwarzenegger remained mindful to keep his name firmly ensconced in the forefront of public consciousness. Bereft of the initial buzz generated by pumping iron, Arnold worked tirelessly to maintain relevance in the weed of publications. To regain the momentum of waning publicity, he steered his efforts at winning another bodybuilding title. But his 5-year absence from competition risked the foregone conclusion of a triumphant return to the sport. His controversial win at the 1980 Mr. Olympia temporarily earned him the spotlight for arguably all the wrong reasons. His continued dominance of the bodybuilding world nevertheless highlighted a fact that the Hollywood film studios hadn't yet fully grasped: the significance of the international market. Arnold's enduring recognition as the world's greatest bodybuilder presented existing marketing opportunities to many different countries. From the time he first heard about the project, he had waited almost half a decade for shooting to begin. Arnold may have been learning to fight like a samurai, but it didn't change Milius's mind that Arnold was indeed a terrible actor. Milius had worked with acting royalty in the past, and he turned to simplistic Pavlovian dog training techniques, using brute force repetition until Arnold mastered his delivery without thinking. The film was also gutted of much of its dialogue, representing much more an operatic ballet, focusing, in Milius's words, on a simple story of revenge and redemption. Criticized for his wooden portrayal, Schwarzenegger's persona still dominates nearly every scene, despite the purposefully pared-down dialogue. His Teutonic accent works to his advantage, elevating the performance in Schwarzenegger's minimalistic and stoic portrayal. Arnold also revels in the extreme physicality of the role, literally throwing himself into many of his own stunts. After rolling down a mountainside and bleeding on the rocks below on one take, Arnold called out to Milius above, "Look, real blood." "Don't touch it," Milius replied. "It looks great." In lieu of any bandages, Milius applied the balm of his own homespun philosophy, proclaiming that pain is temporary and that film is eternal. It was a pithy epigram echoing Arnold's own bodybuilding mantras, which Schwarzenegger later carried onto future movie sets. In another instance, a fellow actor complained of the bitter cold retreating from the set. He later passed by a half-naked Arnold sitting outside his trailer, reading a magazine, while the wind-blown snow settled into his hair. "What are you doing?" Milius asked. "Learning not to shiver," Arnold replied. Point made, the aforementioned whining colleague complained no more. Milius created a psychological and physical ambiance which blended seamlessly into the exquisitely constructed world of set designer Ron Cobb. The palaces, dungeons, and villages took on a resonance of this different universe, transporting the cast to the mythical world which their characters inhabited. A group of 11 enormous Danes, resembling a Viking throwback, added to this otherworldly atmosphere. Longtime friend and bodybuilding Dane Sven-Ole Thorsen had previously met Arnold in Copenhagen on a promotional tour of Pumping Iron. Standing 6 foot and 330 pounds, Milius immediately hired Thorsen and friends to play a variety of villains and stuntmen. These Great Danes, as Milius labelled the ensemble, were rounded out by competitive weightlifter William Smith, who played Conan's father, along with giant 6'8" NFL defensive end Ben Davidson, and together with the bit part appearance of Schwarzenegger's best friend and two-time Mr. Olympia Franco Columbu. Milius encouraged cast and crew to embrace tribalism. They sat together dressed in full costume at mealtimes, casting away their eating utensils and ripping the meat off the bones with their hands. While shooting at night, they sat around a bonfire sharing stories and settled any arguments at the admonishment of Milius to fight in front of everyone for the enjoyment and pleasure of mutual combat. The lived experience of dressing and playing a barbarian for 14 hours a day for months was, in the words of Sven-Ole Thorsen, one of the most enjoyable experiences for Milius, Arnold, and many of the crew. But as months passed, tempers flared amidst an air of tension and fatigue, experienced by many working on the production. Everyone, that is, except for Arnold. At the end, Arnold was in as good a mood as he was from the beginning, said co-star Lopez. For Arnold, the joy and transcendent will to power cultivated in reaching this milestone undoubtedly permeated his performance. The savage mastery of Conan finding its match in Arnold's off-screen persona. Conan's one of Arnold's greatest roles because it plays to his strengths, and it's one of the rare movies that deviates so much from the source material, yet still maintains popularity amongst its fan base. With its brutal realism, gratuitous beheadings, lootings, burnings, and slayings, set against one of cinema's most operatic scores, Time magazine branded John Milius's 1982 Conan a psychopathic Star Wars. New York Times summed up the other critical complaints by terming Conan the archetypal escapist film, a kiddie fantasy for grown-ups. Even Schwarzenegger's own mother lamented the excessive gore and violence, saying that she hoped it never played in their village. With its visually distinct execution of a simple plot, Conan undoubtedly set this small-town Austrian bodybuilder on a path to become a global film icon. Arnold knew that his place in this exclusionary world of cinema had finally been vindicated, though he realized it was only but one step in a long and winding journey to transcendent superstardom.